And here we are into game number 5 of this best of 7 series here in week 2 of Clash for the Cash. White Ra, our red Protoss, in the bottom left corner of Shakura's Plateau, facing off against Drewbie, our returning champion from last week, our yellow Terran in the bottom right. So Drewbie opting to choose Shakura's Plateau, a map that's slowly becoming to be, or starting to get phased out. So an interesting choice from Drewbie. We'll see if he tries a fast expand strategy here. Like I said in that previous match, it's kind of up in the air with what strategy Drewbie tries, as you know, in all of these games, he's done a great job with his macro. He's done well with his micro, and he's also been sticking with this one base play that's worked very, very well for him. So I could really see it either way. Janitor, do you have any thoughts given these spawning positions?
Yeah, I don't think the only game that we've really seen anything super creative out of Drewbie was actually game number 1 on Desert Oasis. If you guys don't know, if you guys didn't tune in for that one, definitely do that. That's worth your time. Drewbie went for a lot of Hellions early, but mostly he's just been playing standard TVP, pushing out, putting on some pressure. One thing that he's been doing very commonly is one-raxing and then expanding. Now that strategy is very, very susceptible to some kind of counterattack after that first attack comes in. So if White Rock can actually stop the first attack that Drewbie does and then counterattack really hard after that, it's actually very, very effective and very hard to hold off as Terran. You can see Drewbie is doing everything pretty standard, throwing down that refinery after the barracks, and that probe is on its way in for White Raw, so he's going to be able to get another good scout of the base, something very, very White Raw-esque as he's done every single game, throwing down another pylon. But Drewbie has played standard for the most part so far, and we'll have to see if he continues that way, harassing away at an SCV and forcing Drewbie to split his attention elsewhere and keep dealing with this probe.
Yes, indeed he will. And I'm actually just very curious to see what Drewbie ends up doing here as far as add-ons, and when he takes that expansion. Time will tell in just a moment here. White Ra not going for that super fast expand that we saw in some of those previous matches. He is going to drop down that second gas, has that cyber core on the way. So kind of the moment of truth here, both players with the very standard opener that can transition to virtually anything. And we do see White Ra is pretty far ahead on harvesters here, about 5 harvesters up on Drewbie, which is a pretty big gap already. White Ra opting to use a lot of that valuable chrono boost on harvesters instead of those gateway units. So we'll see what strategy he tries. That could mean he's going to try some very economical build here as far as 1-gate expand or even a 3-gate expand. Drewbie is going to opt for a Tech Lab and a Reaper opener, though. Hopefully White Ra will be able to hold off this Reaper. He does have one Zealot out, but that Stalker is just now starting, and the timings are going to be somewhat close. The Stalker should be out with just enough time to scare away that Reaper.
That's exactly right, and that Reaper is going to be able to get a decent scout here. It looks like you're right. You're exactly right. White Raw will be going for a Twilight Council. So, no, you're not right. Sorry. I was going to say 1-gate expand, but it looks like a very fast Twilight Council. Now, it will be interesting to see what he does. A probe versus SCV battle going on at the Zelnaga Tower. SCV forced to run away in fear. Drewbie is throwing down his expansion, and the Reaper is going to pop up here, and he's actually going to get a nice scout off of this Twilight Council.
Yeah, and that is the problem with this positioning here. The Reaper will scout it very easily. He sees it and backs up instantly. That's all he needed to know. The Twilight Council is on the way. The real question is going to be, is that Dark Shrine going to follow right away, or is it just going to be a very fast blink? It looks like it will indeed be the Dark Shrine. We see the gas being saved up, and we should see it come down in just a few moments, if that is what White Raw is going to try once again. And, you know, the DTs worked all right for him in that last match, but they weren't really too game-changing. He quickly tech switched, and the Colossi are what ultimately won him that last match. Still no Dark Shrine down. I've been ready and waiting, but it still is yet to come down. He may try to hide it down here in the natural. The expand is coming, though, so White Raw is going to try another relatively quick expand.
Yeah, and I'm actually intrigued by this decision. You almost never get DTs if you're going to expand that quickly. Usually you want the DTs to keep your opponent in their base, so obviously not going for DTs here for White Raw. White Raw is warping in some Stalkers, trying to keep Drewbie out of his base. Doesn't want that Reaper to get too much information. The Reaper is actually going to jump up here again, and 2 Sentries will be happy to greet him and hopefully finish his life as the Reaper comes up here. And the Reaper is going to come up here. Ooh, and if it had gone by, it actually would have scouted this Templar archives from White Raw. So White Raw favoring High Templars very, very early, and that is going to be an interesting thing. An interesting strategy. We'll have to see where it goes. White Raw is going to be going for those High Templars. And now, as we've said several times, Zealot Archon, such a strong mix in TvP, but will he use the High Templars to his advantage, or does he just want Archons out?
Yeah, and that was sort of the thought on the forefront of my mind as well. And it really could go either way. He's been using Archons very early in several of these matches, but I think we just got the answer to our question, the Storm being chrono boosted, so we're just going to see some pretty standard High Templar play very, very early, which is sort of a double-edged sword. It can be very good because Drewbie's not going to be expecting HTs quite this early. Obviously, no Ghost Academy down quite yet, and Drewbie's probably not even thinking of that yet. So these HTs are going to give White Raw a nice tech advantage, but Drewbie does have Stim complete now and will be able to micro around Storms somewhat easily, and because those HTs are so resource intensive on only 2 base, and even before those 2 bases are saturated, White Raw's not really going to have a huge cushion of units to deal with the forces coming his way. As we see here, at a pretty big army value disadvantage, Storm still not yet completed, 30 seconds away. Drewbie is going to move up. A nice set of force fields coming down, blocking these units out, but White Raw is going to have to warp in a few more sentries here. He's going to opt to warp in a few more zealots, and he does have enough energy for 2 more force fields, and that will give him the valuable time he needs for Storm to complete. One thing I do want to point out is Drewbie still doesn't know HTs are on the board, so he could get caught off guard, and that could potentially turn the tides a bit in favor of White Raw, but we'll see. It looks like those force fields were enough just to scare Drewbie back. I guess it looks like he was trying to just feint some pressure, as he is going to expand into a quick 3rd base.
Yeah, Drewbie actually scanned and saw those High Templars, so maybe that's why he backed up. White Raw, interestingly, not using sentries very much. We've seen almost no sentry play come out from White Raw. He's been spending that gas on other things. You can see Drewbie has a Marine in position to scout for when a 3rd base goes down, but White Raw is just happily pumping out those zealots, getting charge. As you can tell, it's almost halfway complete already, and High Templars will play a significant role here too. Do have enough for Storm, to trying to get enough for Storm, but Drewbie trying to get a nice split here. You can see he's in the middle of the map, wants to make sure that nothing is going to get by that wall of infantry army.
Yeah, and an interesting play from Drewbie to move out that far, just to keep all of his bases safe, doesn't want to get caught off guard. And there we go, White Raw with the special tactics on the way, has a Warp Prism in production, so we'll see what exactly he does with the Warp Prism, which units he decides to load up. If he loads that bad boy up with the High Templar and tries to do some worker line harassment, that could be absolutely huge. We'll see what he does with that Warp Prism in just a couple seconds. Drewbie, in true Drewbie fashion, is going to go ahead and sacrifice his factory once again for some of that additional scouting intel, and he may actually scout this Warp Prism while it's en route to his base. So we'll see how those timings line up. The Warp Prism is out, but White Raw's not doing anything with it quite yet. And he is going to head over to those army units and begin the harassment.
Yeah, it looks like trying to take a 3rd base there. White Raw actually got denied by that Marine, and then Drewbie forced to pull back as one Stalker is there. The Nexus does finally go down, though. Drewbie now patrolling back and forth, doesn't want any of those special tactics to make it all the way to his base without him knowing. So that factory, being a boss, just moving over there, but here it comes. The Warp Prism is actually going to go by undetected by Drewbie. I don't think even the Xel'Naga could see it. He might have caught just a small glimpse there, but there is a missile turret down. There are 4 HTs on the way as well. There are 4 HTs in that Warp Prism, and this is going to be dangerous to actually run off into the middle of the map here.
Yeah, certainly. White Raw is taking a pretty big chance here, and this could be very scary. He's going to have to unload those HTs pretty soon. There's one Storm coming down, and we see those Zealots trying to get in there in time and doing a pretty good job. All those Marines get taken out, and only one of the HTs fall. But this Warp Prism is a few shots from death. Oh, and Drewbie almost getting engaged on White Raw, trying to move up and find that golden opportunity. We do see Drewbie with 4 Stim Marauders on the way down to the newest base, and they may potentially deny this base here. A lot of damage output from these few units. Looks like White Raw will back up in time to save his newest Nexus, and that will force him to play some defense for another few minutes.
Yeah, and this is actually going to be huge for Drewbie. As you can tell, that +2 weapons is just about finished. White Raw forced to pull his entire units back. Ooh, a great feedback, almost taking down that medevac. Unfortunately, not enough energy on it, but that Warp Prism still loaded up with three HTs, 40 shields, and 7 HP. Man, that was so close. White Raw now making tons of Archons. Those Zealots going to start chipping away. Charge is finished. +1 upgrades for, or +1/+0 for the ground units of White Raw. +2/+1 for Drewbie. And this looks like it could be a scary engage. A couple of bunkers are down, along with a sensor tower. So Drewbie is going to know exactly where his opponent is. He has 5 ghosts on the map right now, and those EMPs could be huge. A great scan there going off by Drewbie yet again, and here comes the EMPs. They go off and get all of those units. That is absolutely huge. Drewbie stutter stepping back and actually allowing White Raw to run away. White Raw